What's up, sports fans? It's your boy, Mike the Sports Guy, here on a Flag Day Monday, June 14th, and we are here for more baseball. We have the Power Rankings ready to go. A whole bunch of movement this week in the Power Rankings. Let's see where your team ends up. I'll make this as quick and short and sweet as possible because I know everybody wants to get going with their baseball games tonight. So let's move on to our Power Rankings for this week. For June 13th, 2021. All right. Let me move myself out of the way here. Ta-da! There we go. So this is where your teams were last week. Diamondbacks were last. The Giants were first. And your teams are somewhere in between there. Good for you. You'll see where they move on next in the Mike, the Sports Guy Power Rankings for June 14th. Getting a week ahead of myself here. So here we go. Starting off with the last place, Arizona Diamondbacks. They have lost 10 straight games. It's been ugly. Ugly. They went 0-5 this week. They've lost all 10 games, their last 10. They now boast a record of 20-46. It has been absolutely downright atrocious in Arizona. They're going to have to sell off everybody. Not surprising. They also, I guess in a good sense, maybe, have the worst divisional game back at 20.5 games back. So, that's all I have to say. Moving on. Pittsburgh, 29. Pittsburgh drops 3 spots from 26 from last week. They are now 23-41. They went 0-6 this week. They've lost 7 straight. They just got swept by the Dodgers and the Brewers, 2 teams that are fighting for the playoffs. So, Pittsburgh not hanging around with the good teams, and this is what you get. So, Pittsburgh, 29th. All right, moving on. Baltimore, now 28th. They were 20th last week as well. They are now 22-42. They have a worse record than Pittsburgh, but they did win a game this week. So, behold, you stay in the same spot you did last week. They beat the Mets on Tuesday night 10-3, and then they got blown out Wednesday night, Matt Harvey night, 14-1, and they just got swept by the Rays. So, Baltimore not doing themselves any favors. They stayed down towards the bottom at 28, and so does Colorado. They're 27th. They do not move as well either. 25-41 is their record. Just more of the same for Colorado. They went 1-5 this week. They did meet Miami 1 out of 3, and then they just got swept by Cincinnati. So, all is more of the same for these teams. Texas, however, had a pretty okay week. They went a record of 2-3 this week. They move up 3 spots from 29th to 26, so them and Pittsburgh pretty much switch. Texas record is now 25-41, same as the Rockies. However, Texas did play San Francisco and LA, as in the Dodgers this week, and they went 2 out of 5, which isn't a bad point in there. And it's just for the Rangers, it's just, they got hurt. Their starting pitching especially got hurt. They're starting to be on the mend. They're starting to play a little bit better baseball. Are they going to the playoffs? No, I don't expect them to make a run. I don't expect them to go anywhere this year. And that was the expectation coming into this year. But the fact that they're not as bad as these other 4 teams on the bottom is pretty impressive, actually, because the expectation where the Rangers were supposed to be the worst team in baseball. No pitching, no bullpen, a little bit of hitting. That was it. But they've been able to get by, especially against good teams at times. So they've been able to hold their own and get some wins in there, and good for them. So, but they are still at the bottom 5 of the league at 26. All right, moving on. Oop, I skipped a little bit. That's okay. So Detroit is now 25th. Minnesota's now 24th. These 2 teams switched this past week. They both had the same record at 26-39. The Detroit Tigers and Minnesota Twins both went 2-4. However, Detroit did win the first series 2 out of 3 against Seattle, and then they got swept by the White Sox. Whereas Minnesota came back and won on Thursday, won on 7-5 game against the Yankees, but did lose 2 out of 3, and then they lost 2 out of 3 against Houston. They're pretty much at the same spot. I gave the Twins a little bit more oomph just because of that win against the Yankees on Thursday night, that comeback victory against Chapman and everybody, and that was great to watch. So, but anyway, the Twins, Tigers, 24th and 25th, they just flopped spots from last week. This team is one of the big losers of the week. The Seattle Mariners are now 23rd. They were 17th last week. They now have a record of 32 and 35. That means they dropped 6 spots from the power rankings from last week. They're now 8 games out of the American League West, 6 games out of the American League Wild Card, and they went 2 and 4 this week. And it's not been pretty for the Mariners lately. They were riding a high, now they're riding a low, and it's a hit or miss right now for the Mariners. Their hitting's not consistent at all. I mean, it just disappears at times, and it's very painful to watch. But when you lose 2 out of 3 against Detroit, and then you lose 2 out of 3 against Cleveland, that's not going to do you any favors. So the Mariners, they dropped big time. They're one of the biggest losers of the week. They tie for being the biggest loser of the week. They moved down from 17 to 23. The next one is Atlanta. They have dropped down 3 spots to number 22. They're now 30 and 33. Yes, you heard that right with the Atlanta Braves. They're 30 and 33. Not good. Lost 2 out of 3 against the Philadelphia Phillies, and they lost 2 out of 3 against the Miami Marlins. You're not doing yourselves any favors when you can't beat the individual opponents. Sorry, Atlanta. They're starting pitching. They're missing some key guys in there. It's painful to watch, and I mean, the expectations were extremely high for this club coming into this season, and it's been all washed out. Now, they're still not out of it. The National League East is not exceptionally powerful, I guess, in a standings point of view. They are only 5 games out of the division and 7 out of the National League wild card, but yikes. I mean, Atlanta has a lot of work to do to get back up into those 2 spots, if they get to one of those spots at all. The next team would be Miami on top of them, and I gave Miami more of the benefit of the doubt. Yes, I know they lost. They beat the Braves 2 out of 3. They did beat the Rockies 2 out of 3. They also lost 1 game against Boston, a makeup game on Monday. So Miami's record moves up to 4 and 3 for the week. They do have a worse record than Atlanta, but it is a power ranking, so it's not based on record. It's based on how a team's playing. They've been playing some pretty decent baseball, a little bit over 500 lately, so I give them the benefit of the doubt. A 29-36 record, 7 games out of the National League East, 9 out of the wild card, so they got to go somewhere, and that's where they're at right now. Kansas City moves up. Miami moves up 2 spots to the number 21 spot from 23 from last week. So the next one would be having some technical difficulties. Let's go on with the Kansas City Royals. There we go. So Kansas City is now number 20, and Kansas City, if I have my notes here, I just lost my notes on my computer. Do this in one take. It's a beautiful thing. Moved down 2 spots from last week. So Kansas City's been kind of riding the high, now they're riding the low, and they're not doing too hot right now. It's been tough to watch the Royals at times because the Royals will be there and then the Royals will not be there. The Royals moved down 2 spots from last week. They're now 30 and 34. They lost all 3 games against the Angels earlier this week. And then they lost 3 out of 4 against the Oakland A's this week. And Oakland, who hasn't been really playing too well, been kind of middling too. They lost 3 out of 4, so they go 1 and 6, and they've lost 3 straight. That's been tough to watch Kansas City right now. So they're now number 20. Moving on to number 19, DC. Washington moves up 3 spots from 22 to 19. They're now 27 and 35. 7.5 games out of the National League East, 9.5 games out of the National League Wild Card. They did split a series against Tampa Bay, but then they beat San Francisco 2 out of 4, which isn't too bad. They went 3 and 3 this week. They just might have lost Max Scherzer for a long period of time, though, so let's see how that goes. That's the last thing the Nats need was to lose their best pitcher. But, I mean, they've been patching together. Now, you're going to say, and you're going to look at it, Miami and Atlanta are ahead of them in the standings, yet Washington's ahead of them. It's by virtue of opponent, Washington deserves to move up over those 2 teams. And it's all subjective, so whatever. So, I put them at 19th. You guys can go wherever you want to put them, but they're 19th for me this week. The Cardinals are 18th, and the Cardinals are one of your biggest losers of the week at losing 4 spots from 14 to 18. They had an abysmal record of 1 and 4 this week when they split a series against Cleveland in 2 games, and they just got swept by the Chicago Cubs in Wrigley. Oh boy, St. Louis is now 1 game under 500, and the Rails are starting to kind of fall off here in that National League Central race. They were doing exceptionally well earlier this year. Now they've just kind of fallen off a cliff. And nobody can pick why. And I mean, you know, your starting rotation isn't as strong as it was last year. Okay, I can give you that. Your bullpen isn't as strong as last year. I can give you that too. But still, there's a lot of talent on this team for this team to be under 500 at this point of the year. But, I mean, sometimes good teams have lulls, and maybe the Cardinals are where they're at. But right now, yikes, it has not been pretty. And they're now to 18th in the power rankings. And speaking of teams dropping as well, that would also be the New York Yankees. So they've dropped down 4 spots as well. So then the Cardinals moved down 4 spots together. The Yankees are 17th. They're now 8.5 games. Yes, you heard that right. 8.5 games out of the divisional lead. 4 games out of the wild card in the American League. They did win 2 out of 3 against Minnesota, but ugly loss on Thursday. That should have been a game they won, and then they just got swept in a 2-game series against the Phillies. They've lost 3 straight. They've won 3 out of their last 7, 3 out of their last 10. They're 1 game over 500 and barely 1 game over 500. The Yankees have got to get it together if they're looking to make a push. The Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim are one of your biggest winners of the week. They move up 5 spots. I think that is the second biggest jump, and it is. They're now 1 game over 500, and they kind of came out of nowhere because they're still battling injuries, but they're now 6 games out of the West, 4 games out of the wild card. They swept the Royals early in the week, and then they just swept the Arizona Diamondbacks. That means they went 6-0 this week. Look at them. They've won 6 straight. They've won 8 out of their last 10. The Angels are riding high right now. Will it continue? That's soon to be determined. They will be playing some divisional opponents coming up. See what the Angels can do, but it's been a fun ride for them for the last week or two. Cincinnati as well. They move up a spot from last week. Last week they did really well. They're now at 32-31. 5 games out of the National League Central and the wild card. They did lose 2 out of 3 against Milwaukee, but they did sweep the Colorado Rockies. They're now 4-2 for the week. They've won 8 out of the last 10. Reds are making a push. Are they going to be able to make it too? They're in the same boat as the Angels. I don't know. I don't think they have, either of these teams have what it takes to get to the postseason. But prove me wrong. Let's have some fun with this. It's always fun watching other teams make it. Philadelphia also moves up as well. They were 20th last week. They're your biggest winner of the week. They moved up 6 spots. They're now also 1 game over 500. That home record at 21-12 has really helped them out, and they did have some series at home this past week. So they're now 3 games out of the National League East, 5 games out of the wild card. They beat Atlanta 2 out of 3, and then they just swept the Yankees. That's a 4-1 week. They won 4 straight, and they won 7 out of their last 10. So here come the Phillies again. That bullpen, though, that bullpen's horrendous for Philadelphia, but everything else has been keeping them up. So let's see if the Philadelphia Phillies can make a push and maybe make a move as well to try and get back in the National League East and the National League wildcard race as well. Toronto, they moved down a spot. They were 12th last week. They're now 13th. They're 3 games over 500 at 33-30. That's a 7.5 game back clip in the American League East. 3 games back in the American League wildcard. They just lost to the White Sox 2 out of 3. And then they did beat Boston 2 out of 3, especially with the shellacking on Sunday. An 18-4 win. I mean, Toronto has been kind of middling. They have probably a triple crowner in Vlad Guerrero Jr. The holy mackerel, he's been playing outstanding. But can the Blue Jays keep it together? I don't know. Their pitching's a little bit suspect to me. They can make a run at the American League wildcard, but I don't think, especially with the how top-heavy the American League is, I don't know if they can get into it. So, to be determined. We'll find out. But Toronto right now, not doing too bad. 3 games over 500. I don't think you can complain about that with the Buffalo Blue Jays at all. Cleveland moves to number 12. They move up 3 spots from 15th of last week. They're now at 34-28. 5.5 games out of the Central. 1.5 games out of the American League wild card. Not a bad week for them. They split a series with St. Louis, and then they just won 2 out of 3 against the Seattle Mariners. Those are games you need to win. And Cleveland's still holding their own. I mean, they got a very top-heavy rotation. Their bullpen isn't too bad, and their hitting's not too bad either. I think, they're in the conversation again to the American League wild card as well. Will they do it? I don't know. It depends on what happens with the teams above them, but they got a shot. The New York Mets, by virtue of other teams moving up, moved down a spot at 11. They were 10th last week. They are now at 32-25. That's 7 games over 500. That 17-6 record at home has really helped them out a lot. They lead the National League East. They split the series against Baltimore this week. First game on Tuesday was a shellacking. They got to figure out what to do with David Peterson, but they did come back and win Wednesday 14-1. And they just beat the Padres 2 out of 3, which that's no easy task. bullpen kind of did melt down a little bit on Sunday. There's been a lot of questions on Mets Twitter about, oh, hey, Rojas is, mismanaging the bullpen. Mets have a lot of games coming up. I'm going to be probably one of the few saying I think Rojas was playing it safe. Miguel Castro hurt his neck. You don't want to overuse guys right now like the Padres are doing, which it was talked about pretty much all series long. I was listening to it on the radio at work, and the Mets are holding their own, and the Mets, they're getting players healthy. They should be getting Jeff McNeil back this week, so watch out. Here come the Mets. I think they can really make a push here to get into the top 10 and further up there. Starting with the top 10, San Diego. They moved down big time. They moved down 5 spots from last week. They do have a 38-29 record. That's 9 games over 500, but they've been slipping as of late. They went 2-4 this week. They lost 2 out of 3 against the Cubbies, and then they lost 2 out of 3 against the Mets on the road trip. At least a good remedy is that you get to play a really bad team in Colorado coming up, but still, they've dropped out of a playoff spot now. They're now 3 games out of the divisional lead, 1 game out of a wild card. I was tempted to put the Mets at 10 and put the San Diego Padres at 11, but I'll be fair. I'm not going to be overwhelming. The Padres are a better team as of right now than the Mets, but if you're going to put them in a series, in an overall sense, a 5-game series, the Mets might beat you because the Mets have the pitching staff that the Padres do not. So, dominance is where the Mets are. They just got to stay healthy. Boston moves down 6 spots from number 3 to number 9 this week. Tough week for the Red Sox this week. They can't figure out how to beat Houston for the life of them for some reason. Then they lost 2 out of 3 against Toronto. They did win against Miami on Monday on a makeup game, but they went 3-4. They've lost 2 straight. They're now at 39-27. This is also by virtue of other teams moving up. Boston kind of slips down a bit. I don't know if the Red Sox want to play the Astros in any playoff series because they can't figure out how to beat them for the life of them this year. It's been tough to watch Boston try to play Houston, but they lost 5 out of 7 to them. So, yikes! Yeah, tough week for them. I mean, they're too good. They're going to bounce back, but they're still in the top 10. They're still one of the better teams in baseball, and obviously they are. They're one of the wild card teams at the moment. They're the top wild card team right now. And the second wild card team are the Astros, and they're at number 8. They move up because of virtue of beating Boston, but also it did help that they beat Minnesota 2 out of 3 this week. They're 4-2 this week. Houston's been playing really good baseball. 37-20 is their overall record. 2 games out of the American League West, and they're in the second wild card spot. You could put the Astros at 9 and the Boston Red Sox at 8. It doesn't matter. Those 2 teams are pretty much right at the same spot as each other as they should be. And like I said, Stroh's playing some really good baseball. No trash cans about it. Many people probably still don't like him, but who cares? It's good to see them succeed even after all that. I mean, you want to have people hate a team. Maybe they're the New York Yankees because the Yankees are they keep falling flat on their face. So let's see. They're the new evil empire, to be determined. So I gave this team a little bit of flack the last couple weeks. This is the Oakland A's. They move up 4 spots. They're now at 40-27. That's 13 games over 500. I think it was being a little harsh on them because of just who they were losing to. But they come in, they obviously sweep Arizona, and then they won. It was a 2-game series against the Diamondbacks, but I mean those are teams you got to beat. And then Kansas City beat 3 out of 4, 5 in 1 week. Not bad for the A's, and I think they deserve to be up this high. They lead the American League West. They're up on Houston 2 games. It seemed like they were slipping last week. Maybe I was a little bit too harsh on them. I think this corrects a little bit. They're the 7th best team in baseball in my eyes right now, and they deserve to be. So they're up there. Dodgers are not moving. This, I think, is like the 5th or whatever, however many weeks I've been doing this, the Dodgers haven't moved. Except for the first week. Then they lost. They went down 3 spots. They're still at number 6, and this is just by virtue of everybody moving around them. They're at 39-26. That's an even 600 winning percentage. 21-11 at home is not bad. They do struggle. They haven't totally struggled against teams over 500. They are 1 game out from the National League West. They do have the first wild card spot in the National League. They had a pretty easy week this week. They swept Pittsburgh, and then they won 2 out of 3 against the Rangers. Those are teams you need to beat. They went 5-1. Ding dong. They're the Dodgers again. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. This team moved up 4 spots. This team moved up 3 spots. These two teams lead the National League Central, and they're also the second National League wildcard spot, and both had the exact same records at 38 and 27. And that's the Brewers and the Cubs. The Cubs and the Brewers both went 5-1. The Cubs have won 5 straight. The Brewers have won 4 straight. The Brewers also won 9 out of the last 10. The Cubs have won 6 out of the last 10. Why are the Cubs ahead of the Brewers? Because the Cubs played San Diego, beat them 2 out of 3, and then they swept the Cardinals, whereas Milwaukee took down Cincinnati 2 out of 3, and then they swept the Pirates. So by virtue of opponent, the Cubs deserve to be number 4 over number 5, but hey, these two teams are duking it out, and the Cardinals have slipped by. So now, which is surprising. Personally didn't think the Cubs would get this high up the power rankings. They've been playing some really good baseball. That bullpen is outstanding. And the Brewers, they finally woke up, and now they're playing really good baseball, and they're dangerous if they get going. They got a really good lineup that you're going to have to try and get past. Their pitching, Woodruff, Barnes, outstanding. The rest of it's suspect to me. The Cubs starting rotation isn't that great either, but their bullpen, once you get to that, forget it. You can't get past them whatsoever. So these two teams are definitely going to be one of the Central's winners, unless the Cardinals decide to try and, play some better baseball coming up. Number 3, another Chicago team. That would be the American League side, the White Sox. White Sox had a great week at 5-1. They're now 41 and 24. They lead the American League Central. They beat Toronto 2 out of 3, and then they swept the Tigers. Good week for them. They've won 8 out of their last 10. They have a 41-24 record, if I didn't say that already, and that is the 3rd best record in baseball, that's the 2nd best record in baseball. Apologies. They've been playing better, and all that conversation with Tony La Russa being out of touch with his players, I think that's all subsided. They've been playing some really good baseball, and they deserve to be up in the top 3. So do the Giants, and they're the best team in the National League at a .615 winning percentage at 40 and 25. They lead the National League National League West. Wow. Get your divisions right, Mike. All right. They did split a series against Texas. They did win 2 out of 4 against the Nationals. They went 3-3 this week, but you know what? They've been playing really good baseball, and all the games that they've been playing have been close. Going on a road trip, that's not an easy thing, especially going to Washington. You got your first game rained out, and then you had to sandwich in a doubleheader in between that series. Not an easy thing for the Giants to do. I was thinking about moving the White Sox up to number 2, and I'm like, you know what? I think the Giants, with who they have, who they've been throwing out there every day, essentially having the old Cincinnati Reds rotation, a lot of respect for them. I mean, they have the best record in the National League, 3rd best record in baseball. I mean, that's nothing to slouch at. With a team that they have, a lot of veteran guys, and they've been able to pull it off. Nobody saw this coming. I don't think anybody saw the Giants doing this year, even after last year. It's impressive, and it ought to be impressive. It's a great thing to see for baseball, I think, to see San Francisco succeed. And your top team, again, back to number 1, are the Tampa Bay Rays, as they should be. They have the best record in baseball. They went 4-1 this week. They did lost 1 game to Washington in a 2-game set, but they did sweep the Baltimore Orioles, as they should. They've won 7 out of the last 10. They've won 3 straight. They're at 42 and 24. That's a .636 winning percentage, and they lead the American League East. And that's where Tampa Bay should be right now. And I don't know. And it's funny because I'm a Met fan, if anybody doesn't know. So listening to Howie and Wayne Randazzo talking about it on WCBS 880, that's their flagship station. And they talk about the Rays, and they don't know how they do it every year. Every year they sell off all these players, and they somehow pull it off. And they did this year, and they have done years past. I mean, they went to the World Series last year. I mean, I don't know. I can't wrap my head around it sometimes. But Kevin Cash is a heck of a manager. I don't think he gets the due diligence that he does playing the numbers game, and as he does, sometimes a little bit, maybe too much. But I think that's every manager. Everybody has a flaw. Nobody's going to be perfect. I think that's what makes the conversation in baseball great when it comes down to managers and decisions made. Nothing's ever perfect, and I think you can't slouch at that with any of that at all. Because what fun would it be if that were the case? You know what I mean? It wouldn't be fun at all if we were, everybody was great and, there was no, like robot umpires. Robot umpires would be the same thing. I think it would be I think it would take away from the game a lot. I think it would take away a lot of things, but that's a conversation for another day. And that'll be a conversation point maybe one day in the future on this channel when we get to that point. So, thank you for watching. Hit that like and subscribe. We'll have another Power Rankings next weekend, and good to be back. And try to get more content out as much as I can. And hope you enjoyed this little powwow on this Monday afternoon from here. And stay classy, sports fans. I'll see you next time.